Amberlee, the CEO and co-founder of Pippy Sips, and let's talk about it. Let's just jump right in. Can you tell me a little bit more about Pippy Sips and why you started it?
Yeah, of course. So I think this is a story that I often start talking about my second child and my experience in breastfeeding and pumping breast milk with her. But I think it really starts with my first child, the more I kind of analyze it. So when I had my first baby about 8 years ago, I had these butterflies and rainbow visions of how breastfeeding would go with my daughter. But when Layla was born, she was 5 pounds, 10 ounces. She was not a preemie, but she was born very small. And I quickly realized that breastfeeding was not going to be sunshine and butterflies. It was going to be a journey for both of us. She had trouble latching. And so me and my partner had to quickly kind of come together and look at the resources we had. And lactation consultancy was what we ended up seeking out, but also a lot of support from our family, from our friends, other women who had breastfed. And, it took 6 weeks of trying to have Layla latch before we had a successful breastfeeding attempt. But what I really realized in that experience, that hardship, was that this isn't something that all of society has put a lot of time, energy, and resources into making it easier for women. And that it takes money and resource and privilege to actually have a successful breastfeeding experience if it starts out rough. And so when I had my second baby 4 years later, the experience was much different. She latched right away. It was sunshine and butterflies. It was all the things I had imagined it to be. But when I returned to work 12 weeks later after my maternity was finished, I quickly realized that the pumping experience was my hardship in this time with my daughter. I wanted to pump breast milk so that I could bring it home to her. And I had come back to work at a mental health clinic where I was in a leadership role. I had a lot of responsibility. I had little time. I had little space. People often needed me. And there was a couple other components that also made it really difficult. The refrigerator where I stored my breast milk was in the room where we did group therapy and meetings, so I often couldn't access it. I had two kids this time, so the stress, the lack of sleep, the energy, the memory, all those things were even compounded more by the fact that I had two kids. And I was often forgetting all the things I needed. I'd forget my battery pack, I'd forget the tubing, I'd forget the cooler or the ice packs that went in the cooler. And day in, day out, I was trying to pump, but I was always presented with these difficulties of storing and cooling my breast milk. And one day I was sitting there, I couldn't get to the fridge, I didn't have my cooler, and I looked at my Swell water bottle, and that was the light bulb moment. I thought, why don't we have something like this for breast milk? All this time, energy, and resource has been put into making this beautiful water bottle, but breast milk, this like really precious substance that nourishes our babies, we have nothing to put it in that is reliable, dependable, sleek, beautiful, and all the things I really wanted in a product. And that was the beginning of the Pippy Sips and Maya journey.
How did you come up?
That's a great question. So we sifted through names for a long time. We had some silly names where we combined our daughters' names. Our daughter's name are Faye and Layla, and we were bouncing around Fayla and like really silly sounding things. And then we came across the name Maya. I don't even know how, but when we looked into the name more, all the meanings that came up with Maya from different languages were like everything that represented us as a company and the product. So some of the meanings are motherhood, bravery, strength. So as soon as we started to look into the meanings of Maya, we were like, this is it.
That's pretty cool. It's so interesting. Well, I don't have kids yet, so I've never really had to think about breastfeeding, but I do have plenty of friends who have gone through that process. And yeah, it's not always sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. It can be really stressful for some people. And it's kind of strange that like, you're right. It is really strange that we haven't already had a product out there that does this. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. I
Yeah.
don't have to
I mean,
think.
What?
I said, "And I don't have to have kids to think that it doesn't make any sense, that
Yeah.
we don't have," you know? I just feel like but again, like, this is where products are born through our own situations in many cases, so have you before this, had you had any other, companies or, like, products that you had come up with, or is this the first startup that you've gotten into?
This is the first startup. I am a mental health professional by trade. So, and I've been doing that my whole adult life. Before I went to grad school, I was working in social work, and then I actually attended Drexel University for dance movement therapy. I graduated in 2009, and I've been in the mental health field since then. Yeah, so no, this is all new to me. Every step of the way feels new, but exciting at the same time.
I guess if I'm pretty sure some of your background probably ties into the work you're doing. How would you say your background is impacting your business and the way that you run your business?
For sure. I think as mental health professionals, first and foremost, we're taught how to empathize with others. That is the main duty of a mental health professional is stepping into the shoes of somebody else. So although Maya is based on my personal experience, I can transcend that experience to other women. So when we started to survey women and ask them questions in person and online, I was really able to step into the shoes of what other women had experienced with breastfeeding and pumping that was different than my own experience, but how that could translate into a product and how we could make that product fit the need and be intuitive to all women, not just Amberlee and her breastfeeding and pumping experience.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and I mean, it makes sense because in design, empathy is really, really important, and you have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and really be able to play out the story and understand the flow, the whole process, all of the experience that people are going through day to day. And I do think it is, I mean, it definitely is a mental health issue because if you can't do
Yeah,
do these things properly, it's going to impact your mental health going into
for
work
sure.
and you know doing these things and not being able to function with the same level of comfort that you had prior to having a child. It can be really impactful
Exactly.
for both men and women. I mean, for all parents, actually.
Yep.
I think it can definitely be very difficult, which is one of the reasons why I haven't yet jumped into the parenting game.
And buyer beware.
Yeah, buyer
As a
beware.
mom who's home with as a mom who's home with two kids right now, buyer beware.
Yeah, I can't imagine going through this pandemic with kids at home, and it's been really interesting to be in my house and not have my dog here. I miss him a lot, but I can't imagine having him here because I think it would drive me bonkers right now, and he's not even a human child. So, it is what it is.
Yeah,
But I guess,
yeah.
you know, to to move into talking a little bit about Launch Lane, when when you first applied to Launch Lane in the fall, what were you hoping to get out of it?
So, I'm a mental health professional by trade. My co-founder, also my husband, Joe, is a lawyer by trade. So this whole journey has been a journey of not knowing and really not knowing things until we know them, which that has its power. But I think we have been seeking out mentorship and business expertise for a long time. So when we saw Launch Lane come up, and what we saw about Launch Lane that we also really appreciated was their investment in minority entrepreneurs and health innovation. There was a lot that really called to us when Launch Lane came out for applications, and we immediately applied because we wanted that support for our own business growth, but also, the expertise that Launch Lane offers.
So, taking that and knowing that you're now doing launch from home, and you and your husband and your kids, um, I mean, I'm sure in some ways your priorities have shifted a bit, but, in what ways have your priorities shifted during this pandemic? Have you had to rethink your process, how you do work, your strategy?
Hmm. That's a great question. So our priority remains to make Maya. We have to make this product. We have to get it into parents' hands. But some strategies have had to change because now we're in the same house 24 hours a day together with these little loud screaming peeing beings around us. So it's like in some ways it's really good because me and my husband and partner we were working in different spaces before. So if we had an idea for the business, we would have to text it to each other or call the person. And there's nothing like real-time interaction for innovation and business development. I think the fact that we're in the same space really helps us. But at the same time, we have to make really clear boundaries. Um, we're married and we have kids, and there's a lot of intense feelings and emotions that come with all of that. And you put business into the mix of that, and of course, it can become more intense. So, I think being boundaried about what is workspace and then what is family space and then what is relationship space. There's a lot that we have to protect to keep everybody intact, and we're working on it.
Are you said you so I'm assuming at least one of your children is school age because you said 8 years ago. You said wait, so both of your children must be school age because you said that was your 2nd child, right? So are you
My
homeschooling as well right now? How's that go?
so yeah, so we have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. So one of them is school age, and so we are doing homeschooling. It started out as much more of a challenge, and that was really the first one of the first big signs to me that I really had to be sure my priorities and boundaries were clear so that I could help her to do what she needed to do. And then same for my husband. He really had to make his priorities and boundaries clear so that he could help her. So that it's getting better. She's gotten a lot more independent. I think in the beginning it was really about knowing how to use a computer. She's a real smart kid. So academically, we were less worried. It was just really like, where do you find Google Classroom? How do you log in? How do you open the slides? This is an 8-year-old too. So it's like,
I
I barely
about
know how to use PowerPoint. So
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I mean, it's gotta actually, both my brother and sister are in education. My brother is he's an executive director at a school. He's been a teacher and a principal, and my sister is a teacher, and she teaches, special ed and literacy. And like, seeing them do their work with all of their students
oh my
is
God.
crazy to me, but I really can't and they have kids on top of that. I really can't imagine
Oh my God.
running a business and doing all of that with an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I think that I give you a lot of credit for, keeping things going and finding the time to balance between all of those things. I think you're right. It is really key because if you're not organized enough to make a schedule, you're not going to get anything done at this time. And I've struggled with that
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
I don't know, like, in general, I struggle with being organized because I have a very creative mind. So sometimes I'll have an idea that's
I
over
get it.
here, over it's all over the place. And then also, all of the other responsibilities I have, it's already easy enough for me to lose track of time and space. And balance is something that's really, really important to me personally. So I think I think at least you just being able to say that lets me know that you're in the right place with your mindset.
Awesome.
At least I would think
Thank
so.
you. I hope so.
You're welcome. Hey, I mean, the 2 of you deserve it. I mean, you're working through this, so we'll see how this all comes out. How do you feel, how do you feel, COVID-19 has impacted things like, fundraising and marketing? And, what are some of your biggest challenges right now, in the time that you are working on the product?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, fundraising is always a challenge. I think, you know, no matter where you're at in your company stage, how well you're doing, I think, one lesson we've learned is that we should always be fundraising. We should never stop. So one thing that really impacted us was we were going to apply for small business loans as a pre-revenue company, but now the small business lenders are focused on sustaining businesses that were already generating revenue and are now suffering because of the virus and the pandemic. So, we reached out to those lenders who we had started a relationship with to ask, are we able to apply for these small business loans we had talked about? And we were pretty much told at this time we're focusing on keeping afloat the businesses that are suffering. So that's been a huge hurdle. So what we've just really tried to do is apply for as many grants as we can. That's something, when I'm being really boundaried and prioritizing about getting tasks done, I put time away each week to apply for at least one grant or reach out to an investor group, anything that signals dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gotta be difficult because even for businesses that are already generating revenue, it's really tough to get access to some of these grants right now. And I think that we've got to do more to continue to support people that are early stage, that are going through this process with everyone else. It's just
Yeah.
really unfortunate. It's bad timing, for everybody. And
Yeah.
it's hard to decide who's more important, but I think that, um,
Yeah.
I've been having a lot of conversations about innovation and what does it mean to foster innovation, and the importance of fostering innovation. Excuse me. I got like something in my throat, allergies. Uh, Fostering innovation, economies, and it's just, like, it's difficult enough already to keep an ecosystem and an economy going when, when no one is able to be in the same physical space. But looking forward, it's also difficult to see how, if we don't continue to get money to early stage people, what will come out of this. I think in some
Yeah.
ways it might be possible that there are a lot of interesting companies born out of the pandemic, but there's also going to be a lot of loss, during this
Mhm.
time. So I think that being in a program like LaunchLane at this time, or any accelerator right now, is both challenging but also an opportunity to stay ahead and continue to have these conversations, because not everybody has a
Mhm.
group of people to have these conversations with. How I mean, what are your thoughts on the the accelerator now being virtual? Has it been good for you or bad for you in this time?
Actually, it's been great. So originally we had planned myself attending the accelerator so that my husband and partner could care for our kids. Um, and so now we both get to participate because we're both home and, we put the kids in front of a movie and we go downstairs to our office. I put that in quotes because it's really a basement. Um, and we sit in front of the computer together and we both, it's really awesome because we both get to grow. Originally we didn't plan on him getting to be part of this growth exercise that Launch Lane is putting us through, and I mean that in a kind way. And now we're both growing, and the accelerator is pushing both of us and seeing where we both need to grow, which is really great because we're so different. We're like, totally different people. So Aaron, hones right into what is it that Joe needs to really tailor and work on, and then looks at me and does the same for me. So that's been awesome.
Yeah, Aaron is really, really good at that actually, and, I think one of my favorite things about the team that we have behind the scenes is just everybody has different experience, to bring to the
Yeah.
table, to bring to the conversations, so I really enjoy it, and I think the same thing for the members of the cohort, right? Everyone learns from each other, not just from the advisors, in the room.
Yes.
I think I think it's really cool to see the cohort, chime in and give each other advice.
Yeah, no, and they really facilitate that. I think the accelerator facilitates the cohort mentality and that we're all here to learn from each other and help each other. And I feel, I know I can wake up and like reach out to Jessie at Zuda and be like, so what's your thought on this? And she'll get right back to me. And same with Crystal from Clit Health. I've really connected with a lot of members in the cohort.
Have you have you felt like being virtual has changed that at all, or like hindered or helped you to be able to stay connected with the cohort on a personal level?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think there's always something a little missing virtually. I went to school for dance movement therapy, so I'm all about the body, and I'm not a professional tango dancer, but I have a long history of dancing and moving and expressing myself with my body and looking at how other people express themselves with their body. So I think there definitely I'm missing that component. And I remember the first couple times we were at the University City Science Center and I could look at everybody and read their expressions and how they were responding to things. So there is that missing. But I do think that the virtual component has added accessibility. So we can use the Slack channel to reach out to each other and get pretty immediate feedback. Crystal at Clit Health, because of the virtual experience, invited me to participate in a fireside chat at the FEM Health Tech Conference she just did on Saturday. And that was with women in businesses all over the world talking about femtech health. And I think it might not have happened if it was in person. I think it brought many minds together because it was so cool. And that was really exciting. And I'm not sure that would have happened pre-pandemic. Although Crystal's an all-star, so she probably would have made it happen. But yeah,
I get you. I feel Yeah, I definitely feel like there's pluses and minuses with I mean, with the virtual venture cafe stuff going on. I think I've always wanted to go to a venture cafe in another city. So it's really cool to be able to hop on and jump from one city to another and virtually experience what it would be like to be there. I mean, there's something about that aspect that I would like to kind of stick after this. And I feel the same way. There's always going to be something lost in not being able to be in person, but there is something to be gained as far as accessibility. And we're looking at ways in which we can keep some of these things going after this passes, and hopefully it'll pass soon, because I can't wait to get back into the space of everybody. But I do think it's important. I think it's important for accelerators to not just be accessible to the person on the team that can physically be there, but for the resources to also extend to all members of that team, all co-founders, and team members as well, that could really benefit from the learnings that y'all get. So hopefully we'll come up with some creative ways and take the feedback from everybody, and find cool ways for us to keep it accessible, because that's really important to us, on the Launch Lane team. So it's cool to hear from everybody, because everybody has something different. And you brought up
yeah.
the tango dancer in our cohort, which I told you before we started. So if I just want to throw it in there. If anyone is watching or listening to this, make sure you check out the other the other conversations, because you will find out that someone in our cohort is a tango dancer, and we had no idea. At least I didn't, and I'm super excited about it. And I always I always find it interesting that I'm never surprised that to hear that somebody has done something related to dance or movement
Mhm.
or the arts and is also jumping into entrepreneurship and creating a product, because I'm also a creative person. I can pretty much really get into starting anything from the ground up, because that's what excites
Yeah.
me. And I think that there are a lot more people in that have done things in the music, um, just in the arts in general, just in arts in general before they get into this. And it
Yeah.
teaches you a lot of things that you can bring into this. And so that's really cool. I'm always excited to learn that. Um,
That's
and
awesome.
you, it just always it always surprises me a little bit, but then it's like, no, it's not surprising. That makes sense that that person has some experience with X, Y, or Z, and especially, the mental health aspect that of your background, I think is really interesting, and being able to empathize. I mean, I'm sure that's going to help you bring your business much further than somebody else who hasn't had that experience. So I'm excited to see
For sure.
how that comes out. Um, and what would you say, if anything, you have learned from this experience? Have there been any silver linings, uh, or just things that you're just like, wow, I can't believe this is happening?
Um, I think it just is a call to action a little bit for myself and for our business. I think we were already working on a business and product to help parents. And now that we're parents trying to do it all, and we realize that that's actually truly impossible. And then we also realize, I don't want to get too political, but we live in a country, a society that doesn't have a ton of compassion or understanding for the parent experience and actually thinks that we can work, care for kids, and homeschool them all at the same time and do it well. Um, so I think the silver lining really is that it calls to me my advocacy uh, personality traits. So I'm a mental health professional, but a lot of the work that I did came with this idea of advocating for people with less means. And I think in this situation, it's really about advocating for parents and helping parents to have products or services that will make their lives easier, but also helping parents to be vocal to their employers and to society and to the legal system about like that is, I just think it's not sustainable what we're doing. So how how is society, our country, our employers, how are they going to come back and support us during this time rather than punishing us for the lack of productivity that they might see? I think that's been a huge silver lining, and a couple of things have come up around it. I got to speak for the Drexel Human Lactation Consultant Program, and I talked a lot about that. And I want to kind of continue on that path of advocacy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to consider that people are trying to work from home and parent at the same time. Um, it's just a really difficult time. I mean, as if parents already didn't have it hard enough already with with just having children in the mix in general. It in America, we really haven't done some of the things that European countries have gone well out of their way to do to support parents. And I hope that maybe this brings about more advocates for change
Hmm.
as far as parenting and workplaces go. I think that there has to be a lot more done, um, just in that area in general. From I'm also an urban planner, and from an urban planning standpoint, we got to do more. We have to do better. It's just
Yeah.
not set up the way it should be.
Yeah.
And so, hmm, let's see. What are you what are you most looking forward to doing when the world is safe for us to reemerge?
Um, be near other people. I'm totally an extrovert. I think I'm kind of an ambivert, like you were speaking about before, Liz. I definitely like my alone time, but I I felt like such a weirdo when this whole pandemic started because I was missing random people from my workplace, like people that I wasn't even that close to. I was just missing like hearing their voices or having awkward interactions in the office space. Like I felt just wild because these people would continue to come up. I'd see an email from them or get a call from them, and I'd be like, I really miss that person. I need to see that person. So, yeah, as weird as it sounds, I'm just excited to see all people, even the ones I don't like that much.
I totally feel you on that. I've talked about this a few times. I don't know if I've talked about it on in these conversations so far, but definitely on my podcast, the Parallax podcast, we've talked about missing simple things like going to a coffee shop and talking to the barista and just
Yeah,
having somebody know my order. Like just
yep,
walking. I didn't realize how important that was to me personally to have those really
yep,
small interactions with people. But I think it is important because, especially if you are living alone, those might be the only social interactions that you have on a day to day
yeah,
basis. I mean, I don't, and I'm not big on talking on the phone in general. So this has
right.
also been just really just difficult in so many ways. Um, but I'm hoping for the same thing. I'm hoping to get out and see everybody's faces again without a mask in front of it. But if a mask has to be there for a
Yeah,
little bit, I think it'll be all right. And I mean, I'd rather be able to go out with a mask on than not be able to go out at all. So
yeah,
I
for sure.
hoping for the same thing, even to interact with people that I don't like very much. Um, it'll be great. It'll be great
Exactly.
to just get out into the world again. Um,
Yeah.
and I want to also know, what is your superpower?
I think my superpower is multitasking. And if I could ever hone a superpower at a better time, this is like the perfect time to hone that skill because the first week of this pandemic, I really did try to do it all. I'd say I'm scaling back a bit, but probably one of my most profound days was I was working, cooking chili, helping my daughter on her violin, and playing Play Doh with the other daughter. And I don't think I was doing any of these things very well, but I was doing them all. And yeah, so this has really reminded me of my ability to multitask.
That's amazing. I'm trying to get better at multitasking, so maybe you can teach me a few a few things about because
Sure.
multitasking is definitely I don't think it's my strength at all. But I definitely recognize that it's an amazing strength to have. So, especially in this situation right now that we're all in, it's multi if you can't multitask, it's very difficult to keep things going, and I've been working on it. I'm gonna take take what you're saying as inspiration that I should work on it a little bit more.
Oh, you have to think
And
of
what
three random activities to do at one time and just challenge yourself.
That's it. I'm gonna pick out 3 random activities to do. I'm gonna challenge myself, and, I will post it on my Instagram and Twitter, and, just to keep update on that. We'll see where I get to with it. I will follow your advice. And
That's awesome.
if anything right now, what are you looking to do next? And how, if at all, can other people help?
Um, we got to get this thing made. That is what, I mean, we got our eyes on the prize, and that is getting a minimum viable product to market. And we need all the help we can get in doing, understanding how to market a first time product, understanding how to fund, first time manufacturing for a product, and overall operating a business. I think my partner and I have business senses to us, and I have some operational and management experience, but I think overall running a startup, we need all the help we can get.
Yeah. I mean, we could all use it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can people learn more about what you're doing? Is it
Follow us on
is it a website?
Instagram.
Alright.
Yep, we have a website, www.pippysips.com. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Pippy Sips. We're on Facebook and Twitter, but we do a lot of our posting on Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah, Instagram is the place to be these days. I'm still quite new to it. I just started using it more seriously last summer. So, I I guess I could get better at that too, but it is what it is.
It is what
So
it's a visual thing. It's like I prefer Instagram because it's visual. I think I'm more of a visual person, so yeah.
yeah, me too. I think that's why I'm starting to lean into it a little bit more than Twitter. I think it's a
Yeah.
great place for people to talk about what they're working on and be able to share it in a visual way. Um,
Yeah.
let me see. I wanted to ask you something else. Okay, here we go. I wanted to know from you, with being an accelerator in general, what are your thoughts on accelerators? Would you recommend them to other startups?
Yeah, of course. Actually, when we were doing our tech prep for that Fem Health Tech conference the other day, I was on, we were stuck in a Google Meet. We were in the wrong link basically, but I was with two other entrepreneurs, and one of the entrepreneurs had not participated in an accelerator or an incubator, and then the other one had. And me and the one who have been in an accelerator incubator were like pushing them so hard to this other entrepreneur because she was telling us, she was like, I'm a solopreneur, I don't really know what I'm doing. I mean, I've gotten this far, and she's pretty successful, but we were basically saying to help you in the journey and to kind of push you into the next stage of your business, an accelerator or an incubator can be so helpful. Um, and I think it's interesting because I think you meet so many entrepreneurs who haven't done this before. That's often the story. So, of course, they need help. There's an intuition to entrepreneurship. But you can always use other people to help you who have prior expertise in running a startup or working with a startup, or business in general.
Would you I guess for people who are interested in applying to accelerators like LaunchLane, what advice would you give them? I know
Well,
it's a tough
I'm
I'm just
that's
curious.
yeah. I think to be a well-rounded individual and business. So I think one thing we learned with Launch Lane is that our personalities really got us in many ways. Like we wrote a kick-ass application because my partner is an amazing writer, and I read what he wrote. I did the first part of the application, but he did the second part. But it was really the in-person interview and interaction that I'm almost positive that's what's got us. I could be wrong. I mean, Aaron and Eamon might have a different perspective, but we stood there with plates of food in our hands, talking with entrepreneurs and business people. And we just kept it going and had people laughing, had people looking at our product, had people interested. And I've always thought that is my strength. So I was excited to be able to use it in an application. I think a lot of accelerators depend on just a written application, which is not always going to show what type of entrepreneur you are.
Yeah, I don't wanna give away any of the secret sauce to how we make decisions, but I will say that I think that that's all good advice, and I think that people you're right. It is there is a big difference between being able to meet people in person versus just on paper and or in
Right.
digital form
Right.
through
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and you do have to be creative to some extent because you wanna stand out, and I think that if you
Yeah.
I guess to tie it all up, storytelling, it's it's always gonna be for whatever accelerator, incubator you're applying to, it's always gonna be one part about your team and your experience and one part about how you do storytelling, right? Because
Yeah.
storytelling goes into a lot of different things, right? It goes into how you market your product, it goes into how you pitch your product and being able to show that you are a well-rounded company, that your team is knowledgeable about the things that you're working on, and that you can get into a room or get into a digital format and tell your story in a way that it catches someone's attention is going to be really important to anyone applying to a program like Launchline. So I hope that people take that advice, and I hope that people just get as creative as they can when they're applying to these types of programs, because it is really impactful in a very positive way to be a part of a cohort. And I'm excited
Yeah.
that you're both a part of this cohort. And again, I'm excited to talk to you, and I can't wait to see what y'all do next. So thanks again for talking to me about Pippy Sips and Maya, and I hope that we can actually do this again in person sometime in the near
Yes.
future.